I recently passed my NASM Certified Personal Trainer exam. Woo! Yeah. All right. I've been teaching group fitness in New York City for a little over 3 years, and to be honest, I just wanted this certification because I wanted to be more knowledgeable to better serve my clients. I'm not gonna lie to you, this was not the easiest thing in the world to pass. I did the NASM online self-study course. They have a bunch of different packages you can choose from, and I'll leave a link below in the description so you can read a little bit more about what each package actually offers you. And I finished this entire thing in 10 weeks, and there were a lot of ups and downs throughout. I went in super confident, and I felt really good after the first module, and then the second module came and I was like, oh my god, what did I get myself into? And then that up and down happened like 17 more times until I finally figured out some things that worked for me, and then I eventually went on to get the certification. So I want to share those tips and tricks that worked for me with you. Tip number 1, stick to a schedule. So like I said, I did their online self-study, completely independent, and they recommend that you get this done within 10 weeks, which is exactly what I did. They recommend that you do this because NASM says that you're just gonna retain the information a lot better, which I totally agree with, and I honestly think that you just need to rip off the band-aid and get the damn thing done. A lot of people do buy this package and then literally never even finish the course. So personally what I did, I created a separate Google Calendar, and I actually mapped out every single day of each week what I would be doing. So when I would watch the videos, when I would read the chapters, when I would do the discussion questions, when I would take the final quiz. And this really helped me to see a little bit more clearly the small goals along the way. Because if you're just looking at the big picture, it's really overwhelming. But if you can break it down into tiny little goals that every day you can check off and accomplish, it's gonna make it a lot more attainable, and it's gonna help you retain that information a lot better. Now, when I finally finished all of the modules, I had my exam scheduled. I had like a week in between when I had finished the entire textbook and then up until taking the exam. And I basically just scheduled a module a day, working its way up to the exam, making sure that I really felt comfortable with the material. Tip number 2, quizzes all day, every day. So one of the best resources that NASM gives you within the self-study program are the quizzes, the practice midterms, the practice finals. So my friend Bonnie, who led that yoga challenge that I talked about in this video right up here, she actually let me in on a tip that I actually probably realize is not a tip. I'm just a dumbass, but you can take the quizzes multiple times. I didn't know that. I thought you took it one and that was your grade, and then it's like, great, move on. Those quizzes, they just randomly select from like their big pool of questions that they have within the system. It's not the same quiz over and over. They have like hundreds of questions for each module. So she let me in on a tip, was just to keep taking the quizzes over and over and over, because eventually you're gonna see a lot of the repeat questions on there, and then you're gonna get a lot more comfortable with the material. And a lot of those questions are identical, if not very similar, to the ones that are going to be on the exam. So within my study schedule that I talked about in the first tip, I actually ended up making sure that I would take the quizzes over and over until I got 100%, like 3 times in a row, or I would take the finals over and over, just really making sure I felt very comfortable with how NASM words the material on their quizzes and their exams. Tip number 3, make a running list of your week knowledge points. So once I get into the home stretch of that final reviewing a module every single day, and I was going into taking the practice quizzes, the practice midterms, the practice finals, I actually had this running list of all of the areas where I was really weak. So it was like a general topic or a general chapter that I just knew I was very, very weak on and I had to go back and study. I just made a note of this in here. But eventually what I started doing was just copying and pasting questions that I got wrong, or maybe that I continuously kept getting wrong, or maybe the wording kind of confused me, so I wanted to make sure I understood NASM's wording, so that if I did see it on the final or something similar, then I knew what I was actually looking for and really understood what they were looking for in that question. So I would just copy and paste the question, and I would just bold the answer. I had an entire note listed on my phone, and anytime I would take a practice final, I would actually just scroll through and just kind of review really quickly where my weak knowledge was, these little things I kept getting wrong, and it really helped me retain the information. Also, as I was like sweating nervous bullets on the subway on the way to take my exam, I was ferociously scrolling through my phone on this notepad. So it really did help because I ended up passing. There you go. Tip number 4, know where to put your focus. There is a lot of information in this book. A lot of it you don't need to know. All right, so like everything in this textbook is very important, obviously, but like you don't need to know every type of bone in the body. You don't need to know the origin, insertion, and function of every single muscle in the body. I want you to think a little bit more like broader knowledge, wider knowledge, because I don't think that NASM expects you to know everything when you take this exam. That is ridiculous. You're only gonna know more things as you get on the field, get with clients, and keep implementing this information and keep expanding your knowledge and keep learning. So if you know where to focus your energy right off the bat, it's gonna help you pass the exam, and it's gonna set you up for a lot more success in the long run, because in general, it's gonna teach you where to put your focus. Now, obviously, anything could come up on the exam. They have thousands of questions and they're just randomly pulled into each exam. So you might get something that you're like, oh, why do I need to know this? It's gonna happen, but it's just one question. So I would say focus more of your knowledge on these specific things. Most of your knowledge needs to go into programming, fitness assessments, and muscle actions. As far as muscle actions go, you should really focus on things that are bigger muscles, broader muscles, more common muscles. Things like, what is the function of your lats? What's the function of your pec major? What's the function of the glute max? Things like that. Not the really, really small random muscles that you're like, I've literally never heard of this in my life. Focus on the big things. Those other little things are gonna come with practice, they're gonna come with extra education, and they're just gonna come with time. Other smaller things that you should definitely focus on, because I not only saw a lot of this in my exam, but I also saw this on a lot of the practice finals. You gotta know how the heart works. So as far as the 4 different chambers in there, the direction of blood flow, really focus on capillaries, arteries, and veins as well. Just kind of know when the blood comes in, where does it go throughout the body. I would really just focus on some basic nutrition information like carbs, proteins, lipids, how many calories are in each, the daily recommendation. And then another big thing is energy systems, anaerobic versus aerobic, ATP, glycolysis, the oxidative systems. Just know like when your body's gonna use them. Like I said, most of the other content of your exam is really gonna focus on those fitness assessments, you know, overactive, underactive muscles, what the muscle does, and lots of programming. And tip number 5, make sure you understand what you're learning. I am the first to admit I am the queen of memorizing shit, but that's like not actually helpful for you. You know, it might kind of help you pass the exam, but it's not gonna help you apply these concepts in everyday life. And to be honest, it's actually not gonna help you in this exam, because in my opinion, what threw me so much in the exam was that it was not verbatim, these questions from the practice finals and practice quizzes. You know, it was very similar for sure, but it was all kind of worded a little bit differently, which is smart, because they do want to make sure that you're not just memorizing. They want to make sure that you are actually understanding the material to apply it in everyday life. So a few things to take advantage of: definitely watch all of those videos within the portal. Some of them are kind of duds and you're like, I literally just read this in the textbook. There's nothing extra that you're giving to me. But there are a few really good ones. There's a really good one. Oh, which one is it? Okay, so there's a really good one for, I think it's chapter 14. Hold on. Oh, this ottoman I'm sitting on just like collapsed. Yeah, okay, it's chapter 14. I'm only taking the time to tell you this because this video was the first time where I was like, oh, I understand everything. So, pretty late in the chapters here. Chapter 14. So you've learned up to this point like resistance training, plyometric training, core training, balance training. So you've learned all of the different aspects of training, but now it's all about programming and what exercises fit into what, how many reps you're gonna do of something, how many sets, blah, blah, blah. So all of this. So it's like, it's a good chunk of information to learn. There is a video within the portal led by Rich, I only wrote down his first name, but he's awesome. He's one of the few people from NASM in those videos that I actually think do a good job of explaining things. It explains every level and phase of the OPT model, and it breaks down not only what you're gonna program, but why. And it helped so much. I actually added extra notes for every single phase, let me see. Yeah, so for every single chart in here, I actually was taking notes on everything that he was saying because it was helping it to make so much more sense. And it was the first time that I actually started to like truly understand how to implement everything. That was one of the most helpful things. And then the other thing that really started to help me, I found out that NASM has a podcast. Some of the episodes are like kind of stupid and boring, but there are a few all about the overhead squat assessment that were so freaking helpful. And it was just another way to get out of straight memorizing, you know? It's really easy to just memorize what's lengthened, what's shortened, but to actually understand the why behind it. You know, he goes into a lot of the muscle actions in there. So it's just gonna help you understand a little bit more about how the body moves and why you're seeing these overactive or underactive muscles, which is a really big thing that you see on the exam. Another good episode, it was something about like the muscle actions basically, and he was working through from head to toe of the really big ones to know, and he talks about why they're named a certain way, and then he was talking about the muscle action behind them. So that was really interesting to hear as well. So definitely check out that podcast. Definitely watch all of the videos because some of them were actually helpful, but especially that one in chapter 14, all about programming. It will help you so freaking much. So these are just 5 things that I applied to really help myself get my certification. If you have any other tips and tricks that worked for you, definitely leave them below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I will see you all soon.